Hi, class. Here we are. We're in Act 2 still, the second recording of your reading assignment to start on page 47. It starts with Captain Keller and James. He didn't. It is your contention we won the war, sir? He didn't beat us at Vicksburg. We lost Vicksburg because Pembroke gave Bragg 5,000 of his cavalry, and Loring, who I knew personally from sorry for the pause, whom I knew personally for a nincompoop before you were born, marched away from Champion's Hill with enough men to have held them. We lost Vicksburg by stupidity, verging on treason. I would have said we lost Vicksburg because Grant was one thing no Yankee general was before him. Drunk? I doubt it. Obstinate. Obstinate. Could any of them compare even in with old Stonewall? If he'd been there, we would still have Vicksburg. Well, the butcher simply wouldn't give up. He tried 4 ways of getting around Vicksburg, and on the 5th try, he got around. Anyone else would have pulled north, and he wouldn't have got around if we had a Southerner in command instead of a half-breed Yankee trader like Pembroke. While this background talk is in progress, Helen is working around the table, ultimately towards Annie's plate. She messes with her hands in James' plate, then in Keller's, both men taking it so for granted they hardly noticed. Then Helen comes groping with solid hands past her own plate to Annie's. Her hand goes to it, and Annie, who has been waiting, deliberately lifts and removes her hand. Helen gropes again. Annie firmly pins her by the wrist and removes her hand from the table. Helen thrusts her hand again. Annie catches them, and Helen begins to flail and make noises. The interruption brings Keller's gaze upon them. What's the matter here? Miss Annie, you see, she's accustomed to helping herself from our plates to anything she... Yes, but I'm not accustomed to it. No, of course not, Vinny. Give her something, Jimmy, to quiet her. James, but her table manners are the best she has. We'll... He pokes across with a chunk of bacon at Helen's hand, which Annie releases, but Helen knocks the bacon away and stubbornly thrusts at Annie's plate. Annie grips her wrists again, and the struggle mounts. Let her this time, Miss Sullivan. It's the only way we get any adult conversation. If my son's half merits that description, I'll get another plate. I have a plate, thank you. Vinny, I'm afraid what Captain Keller says is only too true. She persists in this until she gets her own way. Vinny, bring Miss Sullivan another plate. I have a plate. Nothing wrong with the plate. I intend to keep it. There's silence for a moment, except for Helen's noises as she struggles to get loose. The Kellers are a bit nonplussed, and Annie is too darkly intent on Helen's manners to have any thoughts now for her own. Ha! You see why they took Vicksburg? Miss Sullivan, one plate or another is hardly a matter to struggle with a deprived child about. Oh, I'd sooner have a more... Helen begins to kick. Annie moves her ankles to the opposite side of the chair. I'd sooner have a more heroic issue myself. No, I really must insist you... Helen bangs her toe on the chair and sinks to the floor, crying with rage and feigning injury. Annie keeps hold of her wrist, gazing down, while Kate rises. Now she's hurt herself. No, she hasn't. Will you please let her hands go? Miss Annie, you don't know the child well enough yet. She'll keep. I know an ordinary tantrum well enough when I see one, and a badly spoiled child. Hear, hear. Miss Sullivan, you would have more understanding of your pupil if you had some pity in you. Now kindly do as I. Pity? She releases Helen to turn equally annoyed on Keller across the table. Instantly, Helen scrambles up and dives at Annie's plate. This time, Annie intercepts her by pouncing on her wrist like a hawk, and her temples boil. For this tyrant, the whole house turns on her whims. Is there anything she wants she doesn't get? I'll tell you what pity that the sun wouldn't rise and set for her all her life, and every day you're telling her it will. What good will your pity do her when you're under the strawberries, Captain Keller? Kate, for the love of heaven, will you? Miss Annie, please. I don't think it serves to lose our. It does you good, that's all. It's less trouble to feel sorry for her than to teach her anything better, isn't it? I fail to see what you have taught her anything yet, Miss Sullivan. I'll begin this minute, if you'll leave the room, Captain Keller. Leave everyone, please. She struggles with Helen while Keller endeavors to control his voice. Miss Sullivan, you are here only as a paid teacher. Nothing more, and not to lecture. I can't unteach her 6 years of pity if you can't stand up to one tantrum. Old Stonewall indeed, Miss Keller. You promised me help. Indeed, I did. We truly want to. Then leave me alone with her now. Katie, will you come outside with me at once? Please. He marches to the front door. Kate and James follow him. Simultaneously, Annie releases Helen's wrist, and the child again sinks to the floor, kicking and crying her weird noises. Annie steps over her to meet Vinny coming in the rear doorway with biscuits and a clean plate, surprised at the general commotion. Heaven's sakes! Out, please. She backs Vinny out with one hand, closes the door on her astonished mouth, locks it, and removes the key. Keller, meanwhile, snatches his hat from the rack, and Kate follows him down the porch steps. James lingers in the doorway to address Annie across the room with a bow. If it takes all summer, General. Annie comes over to his door in turn, removing her glasses grimly as Keller outside begins speaking. Annie closes the door on James, locks it, removes the key, and turns with her back against the door to stare ominously at Helen kicking on the floor. James takes his hat from the rack and, going down the porch steps, joins Kate and Keller talking in the yard. Keller in a sputter of ear. This cub of a girl presumes. I'll tell you, I'm half a mind to ship her back to Boston before the week is out. You can inform her so for me. I, Captain? She's a hireling. Now I want it clear. Unless there's an apology and a complete change of manner, she goes back on the next train. Will you make that quite clear? Where will you be, Captain? While I'm making it quite at the office. He begins off left. First, his napkin, still in his irate hand, is uncertain with it, dabs his lip with dainty, gets rid of it and tosses it to James, and marches off. James turns to eye Kate. Will you? Kate's mouth is set, and James studies it lightly. I thought what she said was exceptionally intelligent. I've been saying it for years. To his face. She comes to relieve him of the white napkin, but reverts again with it. Or will you take it, Jimmy, as a flag?